Hey there, pilots! I heard you want a ship, and the game is trying to make it incredibly difficult for you to get a good one. So I have a proper guide for you, how to build a good combat-ready ship. From beginner tips to a little bit more advanced later on. So first, of course, you need to find some kinds of ship services, some person that will talk about ship with you. Then you choose the conversation about I would like to view and modify my ships.
Sounds like fun.
You probably have one if you are watching this tutorial. I do have two different ships, Class C and Class A. So, that's my ship, but it doesn't tell you much because it's already here. But what if it would not be here? Or you have some rubbish ship that the game gave you for free, or you steal it somewhere and you want to make it good, possibly without spending all your credits and more. So what you do, you go into Ship Builder. Now, whatever your ship is, if you want it to be really good, what I recommend first, just scrap it all. Scrap it all into the pieces and then start building. So what you do, you just select all the pieces, and I'm on PC, so I'm selecting with mouse and pressing delete button on the keyboard to remove everything piece by piece. Some pieces that are attached together will remove in a bunch, but usually you just need to click every single piece. Now, there is no more ship. My best tips to start. You press this button, it's G on the keyboard for me, to add pieces. How do I like to start? As it can get overcomplicated if you start wrong, as the pieces do not fit to each other and it's causing extra problems. It is possible to start from any piece, you can start from shield and build upon it, it's just harder. Now, so first I go for landing bay, under base. Now, as I just scrap entire ship, it's easy to tell which pieces are mine, they're not instantly sold. It will tell me how much credits, caps credits, I will get if I decide to scrap those pieces, but it's not nearly as much as those pieces are worth. So, on the value side, one item or several items will have plus. That's the item I put in there, I scrapped, I sold, but I can take it back. So don't worry when scrapping everything, it's still yours until you finally confirm the build, the configuration of your ship. So I can place landing bay, and that I recommend doing first. Now when you hover over it, there are different attachment points, should know how that works. The rounded one, regular, that's attachment points for other elements. Then there is this one with like arrow. You can see this arrow pointing down. That's where crew can go. Only through this attachment point crew can go. These attachment points do not have any pathway for the crew. This is important to know, as otherwise you can receive errors if there will be no way inside for you to go. As you will be using this ship, you actually will be inside it. It needs to be all connected and possible to walk through. Next piece. It will be either habitat piece or your cockpit. I like to put cockpit second if this ship is supposed to be small and mainly made for combat. It is important, like if you are making a ship for combat, you want to reduce its weight as much as it's possible. So it will be more combat capable. The cockpits, what you need to know about the cockpits, apart from the fact that you will be sitting in there, and type of cockpit will determine what you can see if you play in space in first person. It has cargo capacity in it, and some of the cockpits have different size of the crew supported. You should unfortunately know that without a perk, your maximum crew size is 3 people. So even if you put cockpit that supports 4 crew members, it will be still free until you unlock the perk. So I'm using Viking cockpit, so I select that, then I move it on top. Oh, and that's important. If I attach it like that, it will not work. As I was showing you before, the crew pathway is on the back of the landing pad, so I need to put it on the back. If it doesn't want to attach like that, what to do? How do you get it there? On the right, you can see buttons R and F for me on keyboard. That's to move the camera and element up or down. So I press R, I move it up by a segment, and now it's here. And as you can see, I cannot attach it like that. I can only attach it like that. Now, in this configuration, the ship will not allow me to use it. So what you do? Now I'm going for the habitat. And a lot of variations. The variations you choose determine what will be inside, and it's usually described what type of stuff is inside, if there is any crew support, if you want even more crew later on, and if there is like living quarters, then will be probably a bed. If there is a science lab, there will be some science station that you can do research, workshops. We have some other workbenches, so whatever you choose, this is what you will have inside. That's the main impact, what will be inside. I can just choose living quarters for myself, and living quarters bonus will be passenger slots. Some mission requires to take passengers. Without passenger slots, you will not be able to do those missions. So I'm selecting that. Now I will attach it here, and that solves out my problem with connecting cockpit with the landing bay. So those are the first 3 elements. Then number 4, I will be placing dockers. It's very important not to forget, and about the docker, when I'm placing it, it always must be in the highest point of the ship. So that's the limit how high I can build. If I would like to build higher, I need to build a little bit higher here and place docker higher. And for the docker to be usable, I would need to place under the docker something that has a pathways for people to walk. So those arrows like that, I need to attach elements that have pathways for humans or aliens. Next. Now, after I have that, I like to add 2 most important elements. So this is reactor that powers up your ship. We'll attach that. I have huge one as that's a big C-class ship. You will probably have smaller, but I'm intentionally building C-class as I can tell you a little bit more now. There are some elements, like you can see reactor I installed is class C, it sends it here. But let's say you are building A, because you don't have access to class C ships, it takes a while to unlock. So you are building class A, and then you like some weapon, like this one, PB0100. And you are like, why not install it? It's great. You will install it. It will not let you put the ship together because here on top, the class of this weapon is B. Unfortunately, everything you are using needs to be your class of the reactor. Class is determined by reactor or lower. So if your reactor is class A, you can only use class A components. If your reactor will be later on class C, you can use all the components class A, class B, and class C. Now let's go for next item we are putting on. It's a grav drive. It's very important to have both, so I'm putting grav drive. I'm putting mine back, that's why I'm always choosing something that shows plus next to the price. So it is item that I already do own. So I have my grav drive on, and one important thing, as you are building and you are at about this phase, it's good to check if you didn't mess up on the way. So there is something called flight check. Button mappings are very important. They're usually on the bottom, and the button mappings are changing as you are opening different menus, so keep an eye on those. So you can open flight check, and it will say you what are errors. Too few engines, too few landing gears, ship does not have at least 1 fuel tank. So we good. Those are errors to be expected at this phase. If there is more errors, something went wrong. As well, there are warnings because Starfield shield is optional, but as you can guess, very important. So now we have those pieces. We are adding next essentials. And next essential is gear. So we have gear for the ship. Now, how the gear work? How do you know when there is enough gear? It's not in any shape or form related with how it looks like. It's not like you need 4 legs or 2 legs or 3 legs. It's not like that. It's determined by your total ship weight and lander thrust. Every 1 point into lander thrust is allowing you to carry 200 of ship mass. So that's the ship mass and that's the lander thrust. If I put 4 legs like that, I will get total of 8 thrust, and that will support 1600 of the ship weight. If your ship is super light, you can go away with 1 leg. Now, as you can see, whenever I'm choosing something, it's so annoying that it's showing underneath the ship. If you want to see this item better, it will show underneath the ship. How to avoid that? I can go back and pressing a middle button, the scroll on the mouse, I can move entire map a little bit. Then I open again and you see, finally the leg is showing outside of the ship and not inside when inspecting from the build menu. And there are 2 different versions, one like that and one regular leg. So when you scroll left right, you can choose versions as well. When you press Z, it will allow you to flip it. So depending which side I want to install my leg, I can flip it. Not every item can be flipped, but it's worth to take a look on that. And some items can, and if you cannot flip them, you cannot attach them on the side you want. So I will be putting 4 legs into my ship. You can flip as well, the same when you are holding it. Like, this is when it's standing and I'm just hovering over it. I cannot flip it now. Look at the button mapping on the bottom. It's different than when I click the mouse and move it around. You can see I can flip while moving around. Then I can attach. The important thing about the legs, when you hover over it and that you move around, at the bottom you can see this green line. It means that bottom of the leg is reaching exactly the same as landing bay openings. It is a requirement. Legs need to be at the same height as landing bay. So that's important, and different legs are longer or shorter, so play with that around. You can at this phase as well play with the shape if you are going for anything in particular. I would focus on combat optimization, so the weight as low as possible. Therefore, we are not playing a lot with look outside of painting at the end. So I do have this H3 tank that I can install, and here, as you can notice, some elements for the ship will require like starship design. I do not have that, but because this ship I steal myself, so whatever was already on this ship, whatever I deleted and put back into vendor building inventory, I can place regardless. I can place this back regardless of the requirements I can or cannot have. We do not have a cargo yet. I would like to add a cargo. I have this one, so I'm attaching this cargo element. I want it on top. So I put a big cargo for my ship. Then we already have base. We need to attach weapons. Structural are very helpful. I will show you in a moment. But first, shield. Shield is very important, so I'm putting my shield back on. That's my shield, will go somewhere on the back. So my shield is attached, and if you can guess, there is one important thing still missing from the big elements, and those are engines. So we need engines. We do have our grav drive. We need engines. Oh, about the grav drive. The grav drive determines how much you can jump. That's your range. Jump range is in here. Grav jump thrust determines a jump range. But jump range, don't get confused. Like when we are using this map, this is how much you can do. How long the line can be from one planet to another. And then you have fuel that we've been adding tanks for. The fuel determine how long can be a total path connecting multiple planets with one jump. So that's just a side note. You will figure it out slowly probably, but that's how it works. So you can get away with minimum fuel as long as your grav drive supports the weight of the ship. If it doesn't, there will be error at the end and you need to choose more powerful grav drive. Weight of your ship determines how powerful grav drive you require. It's not only the range, it's the weight of the ship. More powerful grav jump will be required with heavier ships. So engines have two different stats. There is engine thrust and maneuvering thrust. So maneuvering thrust is how tight turns your ship will be able to do. And we are having all those ships like the bigger engine. So you can see the top speed suffers. Your engine total thrust is really high, but the top speed of the engine is lower. It doesn't state it in here, but when you look on the bottom, the top speed of your ship will be lower. So some big engines for bigger class actually reduce your top speed. They do support a higher weight and give you enough mobility. Those two stats is top speed, mobility, but then unfortunately top speed suffers. So class A will be always faster. Class A will give you top speed of 150, but adding one big engine on top of that with lower top speed will unfortunately reduce the top speed of entire ship. But we need this big engine. So we are attaching it. I need more because you can see mobility of 36. Now, you can add up to 4 engines. 4 engines is maximum. And when you are adding engines, the requirements in power goes up. There is added more bars. Unfortunately, more bars it's worse, not better, because you will need more power provided to maintain those engines. But in the same time, you cannot sacrifice your mobility too much. I have mobility 58 with that. I'm adding another engine to increase my mobility. Even though those are small and class A, at least I'm saving something, so I'm adding them in here. And I cannot buy another big one because I don't have the perk. This is a little bit crazy design from Bethesda. To purchase stuff, you need high-end perks. So I cannot install second high-end engine. I only have this one. And at this moment we only have warnings. You can always check that. Ship is missing weapon assignments, and that's what you want to see at this phase. Those 3 warnings. Those are perfect warnings. Now, so that's basically how this ship will look like. How do you attach weapons? When you hover over any piece, you can notice that some of those attachment points are square. The square attachment points are for weapons. It's hard to spot because they look almost the same, but those are more square. Those are squares, not circles, not rounded on the inside. Those are squares, those are weapon attachments. And you will see where you have them when you select your first weapon. So let's select our first weapon and let me explain why we are selecting those weapons as well. There is a lot of weapons, starting from lasers, going through ballistic, plasma that do both type of damage, and missile launchers that do both type of damage, both hull and shield. And what you should use, it can be a little bit of a riddle, as game is trying to push you into buying lasers to take down shields first with lasers, and then use ballistic weapons and transfer power to ballistic weapons, take down the hull. It's actually terrible and inefficient idea from my testing so far. So what you want to do, equip as many burst damage weapons as you can for your combat efficiency. As you can see, I have those PBO 100 and I'm choosing them even though the damage is very low shown in here. Fire rate is very high and this is a burst damage, which means I don't need full power to those weapons to achieve full burst potential. I can put 1/3 of the power required to power them. It will only determine the reload speed and not the burst damage. If I choose a continuous fire weapon like this beam, continuous fire means the fire rate will be determined by amount of power you provide. So for the maximum fire rate, you will need to fully power the weapon. It will fire slower and reduce its DPS if you don't fully power it. As all those reactors are always too small to power everything, you don't want this type of weapon. You want a burst weapons. You want a weapon that you can fire with full DPS and then slowly it will reload. So that's a guide. I will do a full combat guide later, but I want to focus at least on some basic important information. As well, we have missile launchers, and in case of the missile launchers, those are a burst fire as well. And even better in one aspect, that you can load a lot of missile, fire them down, and then very slowly reload them again. You rarely need to reload missile during combat. You will be able to take 1 or 2 ships before you need to reload any missile. But downside is enemies can dodge them, so I put missile on second place when I cannot put any more of plasma weapons. Burst plasma weapons are number 1. How you can recognize which one are burst and plasma? Usually go with very high fire rate, higher than 3, equal damage to hull and shields, that offers the best performance, as well as usually outrange regular lasers, which makes lasers even more redundant, as you want to take down shield first, so you want range for that. You don't want a weapon that you need to be up close to take down shield. And you can probably already see that we do not have enough weapon attachments to put as many weapons as I would like to. So for that purpose, you have structural components. The first one on top is very good weapon attachments that you can put in place of regular spots. Like if I have a regular spot in here, I can put this weapon attachment and it changes the regular attachment point into 2 weapon attachment points. So I put that on both sides. I flip it. And I have 2 attachment points here for weapons and 2 in here. That's 4 attachment points with minimum weight investment. There are another good elements that I should mention. If you scroll down, it can be different elements in different spaceports, so you need to keep that in mind. But it's a very good Nova weapon mount. This one, it comes with 6 weapon attachments, but weapons cannot be too big, the ones that you plan to insert inside. But it's a 6 weapon attachment that you can add like that, which is very convenient. I will not be using it here, but it's an option. Now we just attach our weapons. I attach them on those freshly placed attachments. Those are the plasma beams, the very powerful stuff. Sometimes they do not want to attach straight away, so then you just play around moving up and down. They will eventually attach, so don't worry about that. And I can... oh, very important. As I'm at the topic, if you'll be later on in the game, I want you to avoid the mistake I was making. Some weapons I cannot install it, but you can see this red one is facing to the side. Laser turret. If it's a turret of any kind, you will need a perk for it to even fire. It will be automatic weapon that targets on enemies by itself and fire autonomously, but you will require a perk. If you use it without a perk, it will not fire at all. So you need to be aware of that. Now, the next weapon I'm using is this electro beam. This is class A. So you could ask why I don't use more than 4 of the beams I already installed that are PBO100. Why I don't put more if I want more of the same weapon? That's because you can't. When you will be assigning the weapons to the slots, so fire button 1, 2, 3, it needs to be different weapon type for each slot. They will be auto-grouped. If you put more than 4 of the same kind, you cannot separate those weapons for 2 different buttons and 2 different groups for power purposes, and it will cause an error. So only 4 of one kind is possible, and in some cases only 3 if power requirement is higher. Max power is shown in here. Max power in every category is 12. So you cannot exceed max power of 12 per category. So I'm putting those beams now. Where you mount them, it's mostly up to you. As long as they will fire and work, it doesn't really matter much where you will mount them. Now, the example of weapons that I can have only 3 of is this Atlas missile launcher, because max power of 1 is 4, which means I will be able to put only 3. And now I still have attachments on the bottom, but only 1 missile launcher left. And I want it to be symmetrical, so I need to go under structure again. And I have one structure piece, this one, Hope Tech Cap A, but then you can as well choose, and there are different types of Hope Tech Cap A. So I'm putting that in front, and I'm changing a regular attachment into one attachment for a weapon, and that's mainly cosmetic purpose of placing it in here. That's the only exception when I'm going for a cosmetic item. I could solve it differently, but it will look worse, so I'm going for the cosmetic item, and I'm placing my last missile launcher. I attach that, there is one error. I can go again under flight check, and it says ship has weapons that must be assigned to a group. So we can assign them on the next tab. There are messages here, the weapons are next to it. So I open weapons and assign it. I like to have missile assigned last. So first I go for the most powerful weapon. Second I go for the slightly less powerful weapon. And third I go for my missile. As you can see, all the weapon slots are fully taken. That will ensure that I have maximum damage burst possible out of my ship. What I mean by damage burst, it's my ability to take down enemy really quickly with a cost of me spending a little bit of time reloading my weapons after the fact, but it's always better to take down enemy instantly and then wait for reload, than keep taking enemy for an extended period of time and tanking its damage through that. 2 things left. If you want to rename it, it's at flight check. You open flight check and there pops the button rename the ship, that's G. Normally G serves different purpose, but when flight check is open, G is the rename button, so you can rename your ship. Now how you make it look good. In order to repaint it, you need to double click on any element, or I don't know what to do on console to select it all. You play around and probably there is something similar, and then button J will give you color, and surprisingly I cannot click on J here. This will unselect the ship, which is a little bit odd. Usually you can click the mouse instead of pressing the button, so I need to physically press J on keyboard. That opens my colors, so I can go over the colors. I have regulation over the color itself, then saturation of the color and darkness or brightness. I have this setting for all the colors, and as you can see, this can make your ship look anything you want. Regardless how good or bad your idea is how your ship's supposed to look, you can make it look like that. Then you press enter to acknowledge that, and that's how the ship looks like. Any colors possible. I really like this 3-color wave customization. It makes almost any ship look good after you paint it at the end. So don't worry too much about your ship looking a little bit goofy. You paint it at the end and it will be a real war machine. The most important part is that you have enough power to keep your shields up and engine up at maximum at all time, and still have some left to power up all 3 weapons at least a little bit. If there is 0 power, the weapon is not working. When you have at least 1 bar of power, the weapon is capable of unleashing a full burst of damage. It will just reload very slowly. More about combat I will do a separate guide, because this one is already quite lengthy. I hope I addressed everything you need to know in case of shipbuilding. If you will have any additional questions, please go to comment section and I will try to help you out the best I can. And that being said, this is everything for this video, so thank you a lot for watching and see you in the next one.